しいもんね、二人と走るの。
If you have seen Uma Musume to the Top, then you would be familiar with this one character, Admire Vega, commonly called with the name a horse, or rather, a horse girl that would win the Japanese Derby. A race that signifies strength of a horse, both in the real world and in the Uma Musume franchise. The first thing that you might notice from her, stubbornness and guilt so heavy that you would see from people who bear the weight of the world on their shoulders. Admire Vega ran with the lack of care towards self, or maybe for the sake of another, as if atoning for the sins she never committed, for a divide that was willed by the heavens. Now, before we discuss more about him, we might want to talk about his name, Admire Vega. His name is the combination of the crown name Admire and the name of his mother, Vega. The name Vega itself is taken from the brightest star in the Lyra constellation and the basis of a legend that told a story of separation. Some could argue that it might be a complete coincidence, but I would like to think that fate played a part in making him one of the brightest stars in the Japanese horse racing history. Admire Vega was born to a really strong pedigree. The stallion was the legendary Sunday Silence, and the mare was a horse called Vega. There are a lot of things to say about Sunday Silence. One thing for sure is that he could be considered as the father of modern Japanese racehorses, as a lot of strong thoroughbred horses in Japan could be traced back to him. The word strong most likely would be an understatement, as he was one of the best. He backed multiple Grade 1 races back in the United States, including 2 of the Triple Crown races, beating the industry favorite of the time. Ayabe's mother, Vega, was a strong mare by her own, nothing short of Sunday Silence, both by her own merit and her prestigious pedigree. In short, Vega had the blood of Tony Bin, an ARC winner in 1988, and Northern Dancer as her damsire, a Double Crown winner back in the 1964 in the United States. Her fellow didn't just come from such prestigious pedigree. As I said before, Vega was a beast of her own right. She ran a total of 9 times, winning 4 of them, 2 of which were the Okasho and the Yushin Himba, making her a double tiara winner. With that information alone, people in the industry would have a strong feeling that their progeny would be a beast rivaling their parents, and that feeling was pretty much on point. Although Admire Vega's birth seemed to be a fortunate turn of events, reality has proven it to be of the polar opposite. In the following chapter, I'll be showing you the grim reality of the horse breeding industry. In Uma Musume to the Top, Admire Vega is portrayed to be obsessed with a certain shadow, a bright shadow that brings gold and false joy to her. Not unlike Manhattan Cafe, Ayabe's obsession is unhealthy to say the least, as if she would be trading her life so that a shadow could run in her place. However, this depiction is actually taken from a real history, the birth of Admire Vega, that some might find tragic or perhaps interesting. As rare as it might be, horses are not known to have twin foals. There is a good reason for that. The birth of twin foals is dangerous, both during the pregnancy and the birth for both parties. According to the information from Scone Equine Hospital, and I quote, if they give birth to live twins, the mares are more likely to suffer dystocia, retained fetal membranes, and decreased life falling rates in the following season. Twin foals suffer a higher rate of stillbirth, and those born alive are usually smaller, weaker, and more susceptible to infections, with slower development than singleton foals. With that information, we can say that even before birth, Ayabe was under the risk of death if Vega was permitted to have her twins, or in the best case scenario, born as a really weak horse. However, reality has proven otherwise. Cruel as it may be, pragmatism triumphed. One had to be sacrificed for the other one to live, while having the mare remain healthy. a horse veterinarian intervened and randomly chose one fetus to be terminated. Admire Vega, as we know him, was the one that was born. We would never know whether the situation concerning Ayabe's birth was that of care toward the horses or just cold pragmatic calculations. But one thing for sure, the birth of Admire Vega was a blessing in itself. From what I managed to find, Admire Vega was born with the same condition as his dam, in which his legs were bent inwards. Though it was not as bad as the mother's condition, Ayabe's smaller stature made it a bit better for him because smaller body means less weight, and that translates to less strain on the legs. To imagine how small he was compared to his peers and rivals, Narita's top road weight was around 1058 to 1102 pounds. TM Oprao's weight was around 1009 to 1058 pounds, and Admire Vega's weight was stable at around 1005 to 1009 pounds. For you metric users, here are their weights in kilograms. As I've mentioned before, Admire Vega was smaller compared to his peers and rivals. During his early years, he was considered to be one of the most ordinary horse compared to the others. And when Yutaka met him, he literally said that Admire Vega looked like either a dog or a deer. I really can't find any pictures of young Admire Vega, but such description was telling of how small and unassuming he was. At first, I suspected that his small stature was caused by the twin situation of his birth that I mentioned before. But after doing more research, I've recently found out that a horse named Captain Vega, who was born with the same pedigree, also weighs around the same as Ayabe. Before Admire Vega debuted, he was not that great, to say the least. However, in his second year, his performance improved by a large margin. And the interesting part, he didn't just improve. He managed to impress everyone involved in his training sessions. His trainer Hashida Mitsuru even stated that Admire Vega's performance was pretty mediocre. But due to the improvement that Admire Vega is showing, his opinion on Ayabe got uno reverse, and he became certain that Admire Vega is a horse destined to compete in the classics. And his visions were right on point. Admire Vega started his career on November 7 of 1998. He was the #1 favorite on that debut race. And as expected, he managed to be the first horse to cross the finish line in that race. Do you notice that I've never said anything about him winning the race? Despite the fact that he was the first one to cross the finish line, there was an accident where Yutaka positioned Admire Vega in a way that blocked the horse behind him. Normally, passing over was not much of a big deal, but in this case, it was considered as a safety hazard, as it endangers the horse behind Admire Vega. He did finish first, but was put down to 4th place due to the aforementioned incident. As a reference, something way worse actually happened back in the 2001 Kyoto Daishoten. Stay Gold managed to pass over Narita top road, but he did not accelerate quick enough, leading to a collision that made Narita top road stumble and drop his jockey. This accident resulted in the suspension of Yutaka for some time in between a week to a month, and I do believe that this must be a hard slap to his face, due to the fact that a week before, there was an incident that caused the unfortunate death of San Suzuka in the 1998 Autumn Tennis Show, a pair of back-to-back unfortunate events that would most definitely devastate anyone, especially when one of them had such a catastrophic result. But it didn't stop him from racing, let alone slow his performance with Admire Vega. Before racing in the classics, Admire Vega ran in a total of 2 graded races, one of which was a G3 that he won, which highlights his potential as a racehorse, and a G2 where Ayabe was the runner-up to Narita Top Road, while showing one of the fiercest competition. As shown in this data, Ayabe actually had a really good acceleration at the last 3 furlongs. However, His power was not strong enough and he was beaten by just a mere one length. Though finishing in second place, such result guaranteed that Ayabe would be able to race in the Satsuki Show, the first leg of the Triple Crown title race. The classic Triple Crown races is the most prestigious and era-defining race that could happen in 1 year. A race where we could see a Triple Crown champion, or at least a horse strong enough to be considered the strongest among the pool of beasts. This would be the stage for Admire Vega to prove himself against his rivals, determining the one who will be reaching the top and stardom. The days following up the Satsuki Show were rough to say the least. He was in a bad condition, mainly dealing with appetite loss. Some strategies were implemented to make his condition better. There were even plans to not let him race, but eventually, the team decided to let him race in the Satsuki Show. Those problems resulted in something even worse, such as a considerable drop in body weight, which is most definitely a bad sign for a racehorse. On April 18, 1999, the day of the Satsuki Show, Admire Vega was the #1 favorite. However, his performance was far from his peak, and it resulted with us seeing the victory of TM Opera O, the end of Century Overlord. But that race proved that our Ayabe was no quitter, by placing 6th from a total of 17 racers. Admire Vega's next race was the Tokyo Yushun, also known as the Japanese Derby. During the month leading to the Derby, Admire Vega was taken for a physical improvement rather than actual training, since his team believed that the defeat was caused by the bad condition he's going through. Ayabe managed to regain 22 pounds by the time that the Derby started, and he was the second favorite after Narita Top Road. On June 6 of 1999, Admire Vega became a Derby horse. After winning such a fierce battle against Narita Top Road and TM Opera O, Admire Vega accelerated with all his might, but the others didn't relent. They ran as if the world would end tomorrow. But at the end, there would be only one single victor, and that horse would be the Admire Vega that we know right now, beating Narita Top Road by just his neck. A Derby horse, the single title that is considered to be the dream of everyone, owner, jockey, trainer, and the horse that raced in it. It was one hell of a race. At the last straight, Opera O and NTR were already at the front, and then comes Ayabe from the outer rings, hot on their tails, chasing after them with everything he got, and eventually passing them, hence becoming the victor of the one and only Tokyo Yushun. After the victory in the Derby, Admire Vega then raced again in a G2 race in October of 1999 called the Kyoto Shimbun High, a trial race for the Japanese Derby. In this race, he would race against Narita Top Road, the Derby runner-up. When the race started, Admire Vega's jockey was using a similar strategy as the one he used in the Derby. He would stay in the back, and by the fourth corner and the home stretch, he would accelerate and keep accelerating until reaching the finish line. A late surger if you fancy that more. He would eventually finish first, beating Narita Top Road by a neck for the second time. Ayabe's career journey would be a really happy story, if not for the loss in his last race, the 1999 Kika Show. The race distance was 1 mile, 6 furlongs, and 219 yards. This saying that said, only the strongest horse could win the Kika Show was not for nothing. That was a really daunting distance for a lot of racehorses. They might not have sufficient stamina for the last spurt, or even they might not have the affinity with such a long race. However, in the case of Admire Vega, his defeat was a culmination of a lot of things. First, Ayabe's victory in the Derby and the Kyoto Shimbuntai made other jockeys start to develop countermeasures and strategies against Ayabe. Hence, during the race, he got blocked by other horses most of the time. The jockey, Yutaka, tried to take him to the outside ring, but it was just too late. He tried to catch up to the front of the pack, but it was just impossible to. TM Opera O and Narita Top Road had broken to the front while he got blocked at the last 1.5 furlongs, losing the time and the chance to accelerate and leading to Ayabe's loss in the Kika Show. That was the last race Admire Vega would ever run in. His early retirement happened because he developed ligamentitis, a disease that affects the tissue that connects one bone with another. The treatment for this in human body is quite easy. However, it is a whole different story when it comes to horses, especially thoroughbred race horses. Not in the sense that we don't have the technology to cure them, but more along the lines of difficulty to make them have a full recovery. With that consideration, the team decided to retire Admire Vega early, stopping him from ever racing again, putting the lid on a potentially great horse from glory he could ever achieve. After his retirement, he became a stallion, a successful one at that, since several of his progenies managed to bag a lot of graded victories, something that is rare on its own. You might think that Ayabe would be living an uneventful life after that, but the Weavers of Fate has cut the thread of his life a bit too short. On October 29, 2004, Admire Vega passed suddenly. There was no sign of external injury, but an autopsy revealed that he died of a sudden stomach rupture. And that was the story of Admire Vega, a horse that we consider to be the chosen star who was forsaken by fate. Join the Discord community server, tell me your thoughts on Ayabe, and who should I cover next? Drop your picks in the comments below. My name is Frozen, and that's all from me, signing off.